Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this tournament showdown between the Dwarves and the Tomb Kings. It's going to be the double Master Engineer facing off against Ark in the Black. This took place in a recent tournament, and the reason why you're seeing Ark in the Black and not the very, very common picks of Katzep or some sort of a cheap caster lord is because in this tournament, the lore passive for the Tomb Kings was banned, obviously. So bringing Lore of Nahakar isn't quite as good, and the reason why it's banned is because, as of this patch, it currently gives infinite ammunition to catapults, which would just be extremely broken, right? Nonetheless, let's take a look at the Dowie army. Dowie are going to be led by Umais, and the Tomb Kings are going to be led by Roflen and Buldiga here. So let's get this party started. Front line's going to be Dwarf Warriors, blasting charges, and the reason why Dwarves are actually one of probably two factions that hard counter the vampire counts, I don't know, by hard counter probably like 60-40, is that the miners with blasting charges are just so good at clearing out chaff. So zombies and skeletons basically just get eviscerated, and honestly blasting charges don't do terribly against some of the bigger stuff either. Like if you guys remember back in way back in the days of Warhammer 2 land battles and some of the faction wars, the dwarves and vampire counts would often run into each other, you know, close to the grand finals if not in the finals, and the dwarves would sometimes even use blasting charges to snipe like a big vampire lord that had landed on the ground. So blasting charges, we do have some Irondrakes. What a Chad play coming in here from Umais, the Mountain King. Double Master Engineers, and that is going to be it for the Dowie. Now, looking up here at the high ground, it is going to be the dreaded Tomb Kings coming in. We got Ark in the Black, and it's certainly cool to see. And Tomb Kings, when you take away their lore passive, they still get crazy healing through the Realm of Souls, but they're not quite as busted, because obviously the Lore of Nahakar not only gives you infinite ammo on everything that has range, but it also heals your entire army for like basically like Earthbloods every single time you cast a spell, which is pretty nuts. Not quite as much as like an individual Earthblood, but it's very, very good. But Tomb Kings look like they're going to be trying to take the high ground. Common tactic, going to move up here and maybe use their catapults to like park them up on this concave right here and then shoot down at the Dowie army on the low ground. And the dwarves are probably content to just hang out in the low ground, hold these 2 points, and weather the storm, which is a very dwarvish thing to do. So Staff of Nagash, going to be going down. Very good item. Ark in the Black is an amazing character. Obviously, he's been overshadowed pretty heavily in the recent meta simply due to the fact that, you know, the Tomb Kings had a bugged lore passive and were getting infinite ammo and whatnot. But Ark in the Black is an absolute raid boss to deal with. And here comes the Staff of Nagash. He's got Buna and Spirit Leech. Buna against Dwarves is an interesting choice. I suppose if you run into Ironbreaker builds, which aren't terribly uncommon, sometimes you'll see people open up with like triple Ironbreaker. I almost feel like just Spirit Leech and Soul Blight would be the way to go, but we'll have to see. So Ark in the Black going to be moving down. And this is one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of the Master Engineers as your lore choices. They have really good sniping and long rifles. 180 range. If somebody's like juking and dodging with characters and being really kind of annoying in that way, you can return the favor and just kind of pick them apart a little bit with those long rifle shots. So I really wish the Dwarves had a Master Engineer Lord, or like a legendary Lord that was like an engineer type character, like Malachi, the Slayer Engineer. He had like anti-large and melee and a long rifle. That would hands down be like the coolest thing ever. Another shot, Arkin does get popped twice, value trading pretty even. Blasting charges looked like they wanted to move up the hill, but going to be turning about. Actually, Skeleton Spears, which is a very interesting choice as well. I don't know if I really like that. I feel like Nahakar Warriors would be better, but it looks like the Tomb Kings are just going for like mass width, right? And the cheapest way to do that is just going to be with Skeletons and then Spear variants, because you can't bring too many of just the basic variant. So the battlefield is open. We see Objective 2 and Objective 1 being taken by the Dowie, and the Chosen of the Gods going to be sitting downtown and pounding into the Ekron's Miners. So that's a pretty good target. You know, you really need to get rid of the blasting charges if you are the Tomb Kings. If the blasting charges are prevalent, you're going to have a really bad time. Ironbreakers in the back and Ironbreakers here. Yeah, so that's maybe why the Buna was brought here by the Tomb Kings, right? So we have the double Ironbreaker. We do also have some Slayers chasing up the battlefield, and ye old Tomb Kings going to be eyeing the high ground here. No scary magic, but the Tomb Kings will eventually have to pull the trigger, and that's the thing. Like, you know, you can't sit back and just kind of be gamey all day. Eventually, the objectives will win the game, even if it does take a while. So many of my games lately have been decided by the objectives, just like really tight scraps at the end, which I think is super fun. Chosen of the Gods being chased back by some Dwarf Warriors, so these mighty Dowie are going to surge forward. This is very cost effective, because nothing the Tomb Kings have will kill them super quickly. I mean, Ushapti, Chariots maybe will get there, but even basic, like, cheap Dwarf Infantry are just so stalwart, and that's one of the reasons why Dwarves are a pretty decent faction. Yeah, I think Dwarves are sitting around like 48-50% win rate, which is really good. I think if we could get every faction in the game between 45 and like 55%, that would just be like insanely good balance, considering we have 23 factions. Look at that, the Fiery Ring of Thori tech. Ooh, from the Master Engineer, I didn't see that. Look at that, the Irondrakes gonna be shooting over their homie and bathing the skeletons in hot fire, and it does bring them down about 25% off one volley there. I love the Irondrake tech, that's really cool. Ark in the Black looking to move in here, but no Flash Bomb from the Master Engineer, although the other one is layered back a little bit, so you can see the Master Engineer chilling here. And Ark in the Black gonna be taking a little bit of a bath, but it just kind of tickles him. He doesn't actually end up taking that much damage. So Not a big deal. Now, Tomb King's looking at the bank of resources. Currently, neither player is really banking. We do see in the bushes here, it's going to be Nehekar warriors and just basic skeletons who will get wrecked by the Dwarven infantry. And the Dwarves, this is how you play the Dwarves. You really just want to control 2 objectives. I find that trying to press 3 objectives with the Dwarves often gives your opponent an opportunity to pick apart your much wider army. I was playing a tournament game against Ulrich Rahl recently with Dwarves where I was up like 4,000 value. But I tried to go a little bit too wide and press all 3 objectives, and it allowed him to end up winning on the objectives and kind of picking apart my very spread out army. So yeah, that was a very, very good game, which will be coming up on the channel soonish. Nonetheless, skeletons pushing back the Irondrakes, and the Longbeards just going to be standing, downhill charge. Obviously, we got Ushapti coming down the hill, but Dowie are just so resilient, and the blasting charge is going to be just surging in here as the Fiery Ring of Thori, nice one there by Mountain King, and he's able to get a beautiful cast down the line on these skeleton spears. So what is this going to be? Is this going to be ye old Buna? Let's see how good the Buna is against Dwarves. Now, they do have 35% spell resist, which is a pretty massive mitigation of magic damage. So we'll see if it's actually effective against the Ironbreakers. Catapult's going down, shooting at the Ironbreakers as well. Very, very good choice. Value trading is actually favoring the Tomb Kings a little bit, but the Dwarves are, going to be able to hold this, and the blasting charges saturating into this position are very nasty. Irondrakes have been brought back. The Dwarves are getting a little bit aggressive here, actually pushing in, but oh man, blasting charge is nasty. Those Nehekar warriors get wrecked. And the Slayer is moving up, most likely to go after the Ushapti here. We'll see how the fighting goes. Ammunition is also running a little bit low for the Ushapti here, but it seems like they've been able to kind of pay their dues, although not quite. Only 354 value. Tomb Kings on the downhill charge, getting some good value, up in by about 600, give or take, at this point. And if we look at the Dowie infantry, they are being pushed back. Most of them are, kind of lower tier dwarf troops until the Ironbreakers moving in there. And it looks like the Longbeards have actually gotten into combat now as well. Ushapti summon coming down, though. That is an actual Ushapti summon, or a cast, or not cast, but it's a summoned Ushapti, but not the army ability. It's out in the battlefield, and look at that. The Irondrake's still getting good shots. But good play here by Roflan. He's able to get his Arkin on this character, and probably will summon some skeletons. I don't know if he's used his skeleton summon, but that will certainly be a good place to do it. But Arkin the Black better be careful. If you overextend into Dwarven lands, you can pay the Troll Toll. Now, looking at summons, looks like Dwarves are going to be pressing the high ground, which normally I'm not like the biggest fan of the triple push for Dwarves, but in this case, I think it's warranted because the catapult position is very, very vulnerable. Like a single archer getting like right here could potentially kill a catapult or 2, right? So in that case, I think you got to take the bait and go for it. Longbeards continuing to fight, and the Ironbreakers, I believe, are still scrapping tooth and nail. Master Engineers doing some good work, but the Catapults of Roflan up on the high ground are doing great work, but he's only ahead by about 600 value. Realm of Souls is still in play, so as the Tomb Kings lose units, they're going to be getting more and more healing, but the other effects are not, right? So we're not going to be seeing the Lore of Nehekara passive, which is really, really one of the big, back-breaking abilities that the Tomb Kings do have. Dragonback Slayer is going to be hustling up. I love that the Dwarves are like, they're not like great in a ton of matchups, but like they're really good at killing like the meta factions. Like if you look at Vampire Counts and Tomb Kings, they can actually contend with those factions pretty well. Now Warriors of Chaos are still very problematic, but again, Warriors of Chaos are usually banned by either global bans or different mechanics until Hellstriders and Horsemen get fixed. It just kind of needs to be done. Blasting charge is moving in, and we do see the Dragonback Slayers continuing to bump and grind into the Ushapti, and it looks like there is going to be the Ushapti summon here, so the Tomb King's taking this moment to really try and wrestle this objective. So I do like that, and the Irondrakes are trying to get away, but good pursuit coming in from the Tomb King's Ushapti summon, as well as the Tomb Scorpion causing problems, but this is kind of a funny thing. We have Slayers back here and Miners kind of cutting off the reinforcements. And this is a situation that always ends up happening to me. Good Slayer micro in the backfield is actually keeping, 2 units of Ushapti Great Bow, so over 2,000 gold worth of value from fighting, which has given the Dwarves probably an edge in some regards, right? Now, the Ushapti box doing work. Dragonback Slayers don't really care about the Ushapti, though, and we do get Ironbreakers moving in. They're going to be a very tough cookie to crack. And on the hill, we do have that fight between the Longbeards, and the Archers were able to get in position to shut down the Screaming Skull Catapult, and the Dwarf Warriors, of course, will be pretty decisive against these units. Like Skeleton Warriors, they have 18 melee attack against 40 melee defense, and the low melee attack of the Dwarf Warriors isn't going to be that bad against the low melee defense of Skeletons, right? So, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, bonus for infantry, going to be coming up and around. It looks like we do have some dreaded carrion on their way in, but one of the catapults is going to be most likely shut down, which is going to feel real, real good for the Dwarves. Value trading is like dead even at this point, but value trading with Undead, typically to beat them, if you want to actually beat the Undead player, you need to be up in value by about, I would say like 1,500 is kind of the standard for Vampire Counts. If you're trading evenly with Vampire Counts in Domination mode, you're typically going to lose that game unless you're Undead yourself. Because again, with the healing layered on via Realm of Souls or Lore of Nehekara, well, obviously in this case that's not going to be prevalent, but with Vampire Counts, the Lore of Undeath is what it's called. I think, you're going to be getting so much healing. So you typically need to be ahead, which again, vampire counts don't have a lot of range, so you can often abuse that, and that's how you get the advantage, but still very hard to do. Middle objective, going to be going through the Tomb Kings. On the side, we do see the Dowie holding valiantly, Ironbreakers and Dwarf Warriors being absolute chads as usual. The value trading, it looks like the Tomb Kings have pulled ahead. Certainly a little bit scary for the Dwarves, 6.2 to 5.8. As we look on the high ground objective, this is a big win for the Dwarves. It looks like they just actually crushed all the artillery, so, oh, they were unsummoned. Okay, it looks like the Tomb Kings unsummoned the artillery, except one, because you can't unsummon things when they're crumbling, which I think is a really, really good change. But the Dwarven infantry are going to be problematic. We're seeing the Tomb Kings summoning out a bunch of Nekar horsemen, I think, so one here, and in the backfield, it's going to be skeletons, horsemen, as well as more spears. But none of those will trade particularly well with these dwarf units. So this is kind of like a ticking time bomb up here on the top objective. Like, the dwarves are eventually going to get this. They're going to Thanos that objective at some point. They're going to snap their big mitts that they have. I'm sure dwarves probably have massive hands from like working stone and iron and things like that. But yeah, Thanos is coming. So in the backfield, we get more Longbeards coming in. Irondrakes are back online. And it looks like in the middle, the Tomb Scorpion's getting beat up by something. I don't know what. Oh, the Master Engineer sitting back here with his armor-piercing long rifle. I think he's the one who's been shooting at this Tomb Scorpion. And the Tomb Kings bring in Ushapti. We have some wayward dwarves back here, so these Slayers certainly need to get them back in the battle. 38 Slayers could potentially just kill a full summon of Ushapti, right? They're still a very impactful unit. Nonetheless, Irondrakes are back online, and they're quite good here. Even just a couple of them, there's only 6 left. They do have a leadership discouraging effect, which against undead is still relevant. If you can get them to crumble, which I really feel like they should make it so undead units do not have capture weight when they're crumbling, because when a mortal unit breaks, it loses its capture weight. I feel like undead should be the same, because so many games come down to that, right? Blasting charges from downtown, nice salvo, able to hit into those units. Looking at the value trading, the dwarves have actually pulled ahead. So the sustained grinding here is where the dwarves really shine, right? And up here, we also see these 2 dwarf units. This dwarf warrior unit has been fighting for like 45 minutes. No, in reality, like 5 minutes. But that's a long time in a Total War game. And the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, they don't care, man. They're cutting up all these units. Their melee defense is at 50. They have 85 armor. Their leadership's insane. And the Tomb Kings really are just kind of feeding units into the meat grinder up on the high ground. Like a single Ushapti a spawn here would be so good. We'd be able to put some armor-piercing anti-infantry DPS into those units there. Now, it looks like Ironbreakers have moved from the side objective, so they were controlling the side here, but there are going to be some Dwarf Warriors holding. And Ironbreakers have now gotten up onto the point, and the Dwarves are moving up, man. They're coming for blood. Longbeard's hustling up on the objective, and the Master Engineer is also on his way. So it kind of looks like Tomb Kings are maybe going to be losing out. I don't know what happened to Ark in the Black. Oh, okay, he's still alive. I was like, where did he go? I feel like he was doing some great work, and then he just suddenly disappeared, but here he is. Looks like he's going to be chasing down these blasting charges, not quite sure. You could drop a skeleton summon on top of the Irondrakes here. That would actually be a very strong play, but the Dwarven Resilience coming in, baby. As the Ironbreakers moving up, Slayers on their way. We got Miners with blasting charges, and the Dowie are ready. They're going to be grabbing that point. Oh no, Arkin, what are you doing? It's a trap! Is Ark in the Black going to be getting roasted? Oh no! That is the last thing an undead character wants. Oh my god, be bathed in hot fire! Negative 15 leadership. He is burnt. His leadership not going to be holding. Although he does stabilize. That's insane. And now he's going to start crumbling down as the flamethrowers turn on. And that could be the big turning point in the game. Ark in the Black getting karate chop. We have the dwarves who have lost the high ground objective, but they're going to get it eventually. One of these days, the dwarves will get it. They're up on points. And here you can see the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and Dwarf Warriors are going to be cutting through that position. Middle objective owned by the Dowie. And I don't see anything getting rid of these Longbeards and Ironbreakers. Are Ironbreakers ITP? Why are Ironbreakers not ITP, but Longbeards are? That's kind of a strange thing. There's so many weird interactions with that in this game. Like, I feel like super elite units typically should be immune to psychology. Not all of them. But, you know, again, it's so weird when you see, like, a Slanesh Marauder being immune to psychology, but then, like, you know, the Mighty Chosen of Corner, like, running away from, you know, like, a black coach or something. It just feels really weird sometimes. Nonetheless, blasting charges going in. Huge punishing salvo into the skeletons, just pouring salt into the metaphorical wound here, as the Dwarf Lord's going to be on his way up. And the Dwarves are losing the capture weight battle a little bit, but all the Tomb King stuff here is starting to break. And the Longbeards and Ironbreakers, though the Tomb Scorpion is doing good work against them, it's still going to take a long time. And finally, ye olde Dwarves going to be wrestling this high ground objective. So they finally killed enough skeletons to get the capture weight advantage. Another unit of Dwarf Warriors is on its way over. And that's probably going to be game losses for these bad boys. As we can see the old Master Engineers doing their thing. And yeah, Tomb King's moving up with some Ushapti. We got the catapult in the back, but I can tell you, I've been in this position against dwarves, and if they got a triple cap on you, which it looks like it's going to be, like there's no way, and you're down 3,000 in value, 2,000. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Tomb Kings do, of course, have Realm of Souls, so the value discrepancy probably is closer to like 1,000 instead of 2,000, considering the mass healing you get on your army, but But again, that can also be mitigated by the timing. If you kill units when Realm of Souls isn't like active and things like that, it can change everything. So a little bit of fast forwarding here, but that is going to be the end of the road. And there you have it. Tomb Kings are hands down to be considered the strongest faction of the game. They really actually don't have any counters. Like if you look at their stats on Total Tavern, there's no one that consistently beats the Tomb Kings. They pretty much crush everyone, but it just goes to show that dwarves are the meta slayers. And, obviously, Umais is one of the best dwarf players of all times as well. So he was able to kind of come up with a really cool build. The double master engineer, I love it. And also the Ironbreakers are pretty cool tech as well. Yeah, and, the Tomb Kings build was good. I think it was... The catapults, I don't know. I think most of the time Tomb King's going with like mass infantry, although against dwarf blasting charges, I think you might have to change up your style. I think if you go with like a chariot squad, a chariot goon squad, that's how you would really wreck the dwarves. Like 2 tomb princes on chariots with some sort of a caster lord, I feel would be really oppressive, and I don't know how you'd really effectively stop that with dwarves. Yeah, like Arkan wasn't that good this game. Like Buna on Ironbreakers doesn't feel great. I think you go with like, again, any sort of a Lord of Nehekara caster or whatever, even Arkan the Black on his chariot, and then 2 Tomb Princes and just have this goon squad rolling around, annihilating all the flamethrowers and just pushing the side objectives where the dwarves can't really defend, I think is really how you win this game. Because in my experience, usually the Tomb Kings do beat the dwarves. I would say, I've maybe seen this matchup 6 or 7 times, and this is like the second win I've seen overall. So, and these are both 2 players who are very high on the leaderboard. I believe that Roflin is top 15, top 16. I don't know about Umais. I think Umais could be, but I don't think he's got enough games under his belt yet to get there, but he definitely could be. He's got the skill for it. So GG, well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you all on the other side, and the grudge has been satisfied this day.